Hey Clashers, Ash Lane here, coming at you today in Clash Royale, talking about building your very first deck. Now, it doesn't literally have to be the very first deck you play with, but what I want to cover in today is some in-depth strategy discussing the training camp cards and Goblin Stadium cards. We'll touch on maybe a couple cards from Bone Pit, but primarily this is going to be for players. Maybe you just picked up the game, maybe you want to get better, maybe you don't know where to start when building a deck. So we're going to go over some card selection, and we're just going to go over all the cards one by one. We'll talk a little bit about their strengths and weaknesses, about what you want to have in your first deck, and hopefully you guys will be able to pick up a tip or two. So you have two splash damage units. You have the Bomber, which is a 3 elixir cost, so relatively cheap. I'd recommend, by the way, having one of these two cards in one of your first decks. So a Bomber is very useful, very versatile, cheap, splash damage, meaning it can damage multiple targets with one shot. The other card is the Baby Dragon. Now the Baby Dragon costs 1 more elixir, but its big advantage is it can shoot from the sky, so only air targeting troops can actually target the dragon to kill it. So the Bomber and the Dragon, I would have one of these cards in my very first deck. Now, as we go down here, let's look. There are no other splash damage units in these three arenas, so I'd really highly recommend having one of them in your deck. Archers. Let's talk about air targeting troops. So archers are really the foundation of a balanced air targeting troop. They cost 3 elixir, they're moderate cost. Spear Goblins are a little bit less hardy, they're less hit points, but they can also target air troops, and they're fast. They're cheap, they're fast, and they're a good card to have. A lot of people prefer Spear Goblins to archers, but you still do see some archers in mid to high level gameplay, and obviously in the beginning of the game. So archers do have a valuable role. The Musketeer is a point damage but high point damaged unit. She can be used offensively or defensively. She's great at taking down like balloons and high hit point structures or targets rather, like giants, for example, even golems. Minions are also an air targeting troop. I said we weren't going to discuss too much Bone Pit cards here, but when you do unlock minions, don't be afraid to substitute them in there for the Spear Goblins, Archers, or Musketeer as well. I would recommend having 2 air targeting units in your deck. Now the Knight is kind of a hybrid type unit. He does a decent amount of damage. He's a great distractor on defense, and he has a decent amount of hit points as well. A lot of people use the Knight until they unlock those barbarians from a few arenas down, but start out with a Knight in your deck. A Knight is a really well-rounded card. I would recommend him for all beginners to the game. Now, you do want to have a direct damage spell, and you have 2 to choose from, actually 3. You have arrows, fireball, and lightning. So, lightning is epic, so let's talk about arrows and fireball. Arrows are common, fireball is rare, and fireball costs 1 more, but fireballs are great for taking out barbarians, and barbarians are really popular right now. Does a little bit extra damage. It can almost kill a barbarian of the same level, card-wise. Now, the arrows have a larger radius, and they're 1 elixir cheaper, so you can make the choice, play around with both of them, and choose your favorite card. Now let's talk about the heavier meat shieldy troops, like the Giant. The Giant, think of the Giant as kind of like a Knight, only on steroids, and he targets the towers. That's a very important distinction to make. So the Giant will actually target the towers and not be distracted like a giant skeleton would in the Bone Pit by other cards, offensive or defensive units. So having the Giant in your deck would be a great play. Now Witches are great as well. You saw I just passed over the Witch card. Witches, you can put them behind Giants and combo off. Baby Dragon and Witch are great behind a Giant. Also a Prince you can put with a Giant card. They can make combinations or combos. Combos are going to help you win your match, and those can be high strength offensive combinations of cards. Knights, Prince rather, for example, they can move very fast when they go into the charge, and when they go into the charge, they do double damage to anything they target. So it's great to get a Knight all the way to the tower, and you can take it out really fast. Skeleton Army, as you can see here, summons a bunch of skeletons, a huge mass of skeletons, and they can be used offensively or defensively. I actually like the Witch a little bit better than the Skeleton Army as an epic card. People have their own preferences, but the Witch is actually a very powerful offensive card, and she tends to last a long time. She's great on defense, too, if you put her behind the tower. Now let's talk about some of the cheaper Goblin Stadium cards, like Goblins. So Goblins can be used offensively as a bolster to your offensive push, as well as the Goblin Hut, or they can be used defensively too. I don't see people using Goblins defensively enough, so consider adding Goblins. They can really quickly distract or burn out a charging Prince, or as well a Dark Prince or a Hawk. So Valkyries, I don't play Valkyries too much, but Valkyries can be useful as an AoE damage, meaning area effect. They do that spin move, can take out low hit point troops. But moving on to Lightning. Now, Lightning is a very powerful spell. It's a direct damage epic card, meaning that you can put damage anywhere on the map immediately. So the Lightning, very popular. You can use it to take out huts and do direct damage to a tower, at the same time taking out maybe a wizard or a witch. So it's best to get your bang from your buck on those lightning spells. Now, a Goblin Barrel is a great offensive unit. Also can be used defensively in a pinch, but you can throw that Goblin Barrel, do really fast and really a high amount of damage to a tower offensively. So the idea that I want to put forth to you guys is, when you're building your first deck, remember the keys here. You want to have a meat shield, at least one. You can use a knight or a giant in that place. You want to have some air targeting troops, so you have your spear goblins, your musketeer, and your archers. And you want to have a splash damage, so your baby dragon or your bomber. So make those the foundation of your deck, and then play around adding cards here and there. We didn't even discuss the mini P.E.K.K.A, which I will get to in a second. But we're building our first deck right now, and I'll go ahead and play it. It might be tough for me to win because I'm so high in cups, and my clan is so high in cups that they have really high level late game cards, but at least you can see it in action. So the musketeer, we're going to go ahead and upgrade and put her in the deck. What do we want to substitute here? The wizard is not going to be in our plans today, so we'll get the wizard out of there. And you can see I'm trying to build a balanced deck here, very balanced. I have right now both goblins and spear goblins in. The bomber's my splash damage. My meat shield is going to be my giant. Let's see, what else can I use here? Just looking through my cards, making sure I get the right arena. Don't want to accidentally. So the mini P.E.K.K.A, I should mention, is another fast-moving target. Only costs 4 elixir, but it does a lot of damage. It moves fast, it swings slow, does a lot of damage, a great counter to a giant or even a golem later on in the game. So we won't use the mini P.E.K.K.A, I don't think, in this deck. Let's go, actually, let's use him. We'll swap him in for the mirror card, and now it looks like our deck is pretty complete here. So we're using the spirit goblins and the musketeers to target air troops. Bomber's going to be our splash damage. That's great fundamentals, great foundation. The arrows will be our direct damage card on defense. We'll have the musketeer, the mini P.E.K.K.A, to go behind the giant or to play some defense if we need to. And obviously the prince, as I discussed, if we can sneak him in there on a charge, he will be a great offensive tool. So we have a lot of nice combinations that we're going to go ahead and play with. Let's say be easy noob deck, and I don't mean that in any offense to the deck, but I do want to let people know that I'm only playing very basic cards. Now that's not to say these cards are ineffective. I want to make sure I stress that these cards are still effective in late game play. It's just usually when you start unlocking more powerful cards, you want to put some of those into the mix and take out some of these cards. If, for example, you don't see many people using giants at my level right now. You don't see too many people using, well, you do see musketeers and mini P.E.K.K.A a lot. So you see some of the epic cards, but you actually see more like, legendary cards, princess, golem, those elixir pump, those late game cards, wizard. You see much more of them in decks as you progress. So let's go ahead and play Manu. Manu, for those who don't know, is one of the highest ranking level 9s in the entire game globally right now, so he's a really good player. So we're going to start things really slow right now. I played the bomber in the left-hand lane. I could have played that giant in front of the bomber, but instead I want to save and try to make a nice offensive push in the left lane behind that giant. I'm playing defense right now in the right-hand lane. You can see how well those goblins did defensively. The goblins and the spirit goblins really stopped that entire push from coming. So what I want to do is I'm going to drop a prince rather, on the right lane. He gets into that charge and it just missed that tower. I was hoping he would play defense on the giant and not the right lane, but he had the spirit goblins up too. So the idea with this deck is you want to start out slow. You want to start out slow with a lot of decks, right? You want to see what kind of cards your opponent has, and the whole key to this game, let me tell you right now, no matter what deck you're playing, the key to this game is turning a defense into a successful offense. See what I'm doing right here? He might have enough elixir to counter this, but the idea is I defended with the bomber and the musketeer, and then I turned that into my offense. And you can see I was actually able to get a significant amount of damage off his left tower. So that's something to really keep in mind. You want the idea, though, the way to win consistently in this game is to turn your defense into a stronger offense. Why does that work so well? Because your opponent, most of the time after launching an offensive strike, is low on elixir, and you can take advantage of that by parlaying your surviving defensive troops into an offensive surge. So really try to keep that in mind, guys. So you can see his princess, he's playing these tough cards against me. His princess is doing very well, just chomping away at my right tower here. So I'm going to have to drop the mini P.E.K.K.A. I have no other option, and now he's coming at me pretty hard in the left lane. I'm just going to drop the goblins on either side of my building. I have the arrows ready. Don't think I need them at this point. I'm going to drop a prince on the musketeer, and hopefully I can get this building down here. But he has the Dark Prince. The Dark Prince, I know you guys probably, if you're watching this long into this video, you probably haven't unlocked him yet, but he's actually a really useful defensive card because he has that shield that can take a hit of any amount of damage. So even against a max P.E.K.K.A., a big P.E.K.K.A., not a mini P.E.K.K.A., he can actually survive the first hit. So that makes him a valuable asset on defense. So I might win this. Oh, he has the arrows. No, I thought I was going to win, and I pulled the upset, but I didn't. It's a tie now. So we're moving into sudden death here. We'll see how I can hold my own against Manu here. So he's coming at me with the Dark and the Light Prince. I'm going to put it down a Musketeer. Ooh, he has the Musketeer counter. Looks like he's going to get me here. My goblins are just barely staying alive, but he's going to get my right tower down. Well played, Manu. Well played. But either way, guys, I hope I could talk you through some of the basic fundamentals of a beginner deck. So this would be a great balanced deck. Even if you don't want to use this exact deck, think about having those air targeting troops and make sure you have some offensive combinations, whether it's around the Prince or the Giant, or even the Giant and minions and a bunch of low hit point units behind him. So guys, I hope this helped you out, and as always, take care.